I'm Scott Allen Miller. It is the 14th of December, 2023. This is my vlog of daily life living in Leon, Nicaragua. Today I'm going to be talking about why I love doing city walks and why it's one of the most enjoyable things that I do when I'm traveling, because I've had a topic over the last couple days of doing city walks in Managua and why you can't find Airbnbs and similar types of housing in Managua. That leads me to talking about this idea of city walks, because maybe this is something a lot of you have not tried when you're out traveling, or maybe when you're back home. Wow, they just went tearing through the house. My dogs are always entertaining. We're going to get to all this right after the bump.
I never thought breakups were pretty. You told a lie, I let you go. Started the words that I completed.
I first learned to do city walks while working a job in around 2005, when I was stuck overnight in cities all over the Northeast United States, which was where I grew up, so I was not very far afield. This wasn't exactly holiday time, but I had a lot of time in the middle of the night while working in a city that I wasn't familiar with and had very little to do. I had some books on CD or on the old-fashioned MP3 players, for those who can remember pre-iPod days. I would load that up with some books to read, put it in my pocket, and go for a walk throughout the cities at night. It gave me an opportunity to learn a lot about the architecture, neighborhoods, city design of many places that I would never have chosen to go on their own throughout the Northeast United States. Places like Williamsport, Pennsylvania, or Binghamton, New York. It was really interesting and a great way to get exercise. I loved being able to get out and explore the cities on my own, at my own pace. I like doing it at night because the weather is cooler and there's no one around. You can just go anywhere you want, and it's like you own the place. It's like your own private municipal museum that no one is really out noticing you take a moment to be a tourist and look at the architecture or whatever. It gives you a moment to walk up and read signs and just do whatever. I found that nighttime walking was even better than daytime walking, but for a lot of people, daytime walking is superior. There's things that are open. You can go to more restaurants, you can do more activities, you can stop into a museum if you come across something, and of course there's a great degree of safety going during the day, or if you're like me now and you often have a camera with you, you can do a lot more filming if you go during the day, because going in the middle of the night leaves me with nothing to record. So now when I do city walks at night, I normally do so to gather information and then walk again in the daylight to be able to get material for the show. And I excuse the dappling, or you'll have to excuse the dappling on my face. The light is not perfect today. I have very limited time to record. As I mentioned on one of the previous shows, I'm using 5 cameras to knock out many episodes today because I've been sick. I'm feeling much better today. I'm not better, but I'm much better. Like, I'm improved pretty heavily. And I have a lot of work that I have to do, and so I'm going to be caught on the phone for a really long time. So if I don't get these shows out when I can, we're gonna have a problem. So doing what I can, so you'll just have to excuse the lighting, but the backyard is beautiful and the dogs are crazy, and that makes it very entertaining. So I started in the Northeast walking these cities at night, and over the years I've just learned that that's something I like to do, so I've always made a point of doing it. Whether I was traveling alone or with the family, I would take time, especially at night when everyone else was tired, they just wanted to watch some TV, they want to read a book, whatever, I would head out and start walking around the city, and I would get a lay of the land and have all this knowledge of a location, so that the next day when we went out, I'd be a tour guide. I would know the city really well because I got a chance to see it. And when you go in crowds, you spend so much time navigating people, and when you go when it's quiet, you really just learn the streets, and you can take time to pay attention, look at a map, and get to know a place physically in a way that's much more difficult to do during the day. When we lived in Spain in 2015, we had a chance to visit city after city through Andalusia. This was a really amazing experience. We would go to Granada, Cordoba, Cadiz, and on and on. There's so many cities. Sevilla, one of my favorites. And each of the cities had such different architecture, such different streets, different businesses, different look and feel and vibe and everything. It was amazing to be able to go out and walk each of the cities. And that is my favorite memories of my traveling around southern Spain, was taking the time to just walk through all these cities. And of course, cities in Spain have really dense downtowns, and they really don't go out into the suburbs nearly as much. And so they're very walkable, and you can explore the majority of the city in that way. Here in Nicaragua, it's a lot more difficult to do that, but the idea remains the same. And over the years, I've simply learned that walking cities is the most valuable thing. If you are taking a taxi or public transportation, of course, I do recommend in a lot of cities when there are like tour buses, that's a great way to get an overall introduction to a city. So Dominica and my wife and I are constantly telling people that that's a great way to start in any new city. You're going to go to Rome, you're going to go to Madrid, hop a tour bus and let it take you around the city so you have an idea of the high points, then walk between things, and that can work out great. But in a lot of cities, you're not going to have that. Only tourist locations really have that to a great degree. So you're going to be needing to find some other way to get around. If you're taking taxis or city buses and zipping between places, often you're so busy dealing with the logistics of those mechanisms, or you are worried about watching your belongings, or you're worried about paying for them, and they don't necessarily go directly from place to place. They go, however they need to go to do what they're going to do. It can be very difficult to actually get to know a city, and you can't just stop and pay attention to something interesting as you come across it. So walking can be incredibly valuable, even for that type of moving around a city. Oh, I know I want to get to this museum. It's only a mile away. If you walk it, you will explore the city and experience it as it changes from neighborhood to neighborhood, block to block, and see things along the way. Oh, now I understand that this restaurant is between these places, and it connects things. When I was in Cochabamba, Bolivia, just a few weeks ago, I found that we would drive around the city with Ozzy, and we would zip all over the city, which was hugely problematic because he would drive through street after street, neighborhood after neighborhood, and go to a place that later when I walked the city, I would figure out was just a couple blocks away. But to get there by car, we were driving through so many one-way streets in such wildly disconnected areas. I had no idea where anything was, and it made the city seem so much bigger than it actually was. But once I was walking, I was able to start mentally building a map of the city, and figured out that so much of the city that we saw was all stuff I could walk to. And if you check my videos, I have about 3 or 4 days of walking downtown Cochabamba, and I really do connect all the major places. I go to the big churches, I go to the big pedestrian ways, I go to the big shopping centers, all the restaurants that we wanted to go to. Everything was easily walkable, even though the place that I was staying was kind of on the edge of the downtown area. So the walking was super valuable. Just over time, I've learned that this is something I love. It makes me feel good about my days when I'm traveling. I'm getting exercise, which makes me mentally feel good that, yes, I didn't just sit on a bus all day. I got exercise and I'm getting healthy. That actual act of getting healthy makes your body feel good. You feel good about it, for most people anyway. Being able to explore the city and connect it and build a map makes you much more knowledgeable about it, and gives you a greater opportunity to learn the nuances of a city. Just seeing it out of a window, it's hard to get the sights and sounds and smells and really feel what a place is like. But when you're nodding to people on the street, saying hello, looking into shop windows, possibly stopping in to just grab a bottle of water, or maybe a sandwich or a Danish or something as you go, or you see a restaurant that just looks really interesting, you can just walk in. You aren't in a position where you have to, well, it's so hard to stop, I don't have to park, there's just all those things in a new city can be very frustrating or stressful. And you may skip a lot of things because you don't know how to do it, you don't know what the parking rules are, you don't know how to deal with it, you're not sure, just all kinds of things you don't know how to do. And not that if it was your destination, you might put in the effort, not a big deal. But if it's just casually driving by, you're like, what am I gonna have to do? Go around the block? Is there gonna be parking? Do I have to pay for it? I don't know, right? Or you're in a taxi. Well, I already paid to go here. I'm not gonna jump out part way. Is it close? I don't know. Is it on the way? I don't know. What if I stop here? Can I still get to the place I want to go? You don't know those things. It's very difficult. Walking makes it really easy, and it makes it easy to gauge, or you're able to gauge, like if you walk to a cafe and you say, well, I was heading to this museum. Oh, it turns out I'm 90% of the way there. I've got plenty of time. I can stop here and it's only 10 minutes more and I'll be there. That would have been a really long walk if 90% of the way still had 10 minutes left to go, but you get the idea. You can make decisions based on much safer transit options. When you're walking, you really do know how far away things are. Google Maps is quite accurate with walk times, whereas drive times can be off by 100% pretty easily, especially if there's traffic, or if you don't know how to grab a taxi, or if you're in some place like San Jose, Costa Rica, and you have an option like using Uber. You say, wow, it's only a 10-minute Uber ride. I'll give myself 20 minutes, so it's 10 minutes to get an Uber and 10 minutes to get there, and then you find out that it could take an hour or two to get an Uber in some circumstances, and you think you're doing well because they say they're going to show up and then they cancel on you time after time again. Or you're in Guatemala like we were in a more remote area, but still a decent-sized city, and found that there were no Ubers or taxis available whatsoever. And while we were quite some distance away, we thought we were going to be able to take cars. Had we planned on walking all along, we would have had much better planning in place. But because we thought we were able to take transportation, we lost hours trying to figure out what to do. So doing all your planning around walking can, in many circumstances, simply give you a safer transportation predictability that makes it easier to plan and ensure that you're going to get to where you need to go at the time you expect to get there. I'm not saying that city walking is for everyone, and if you're in groups of people, it doesn't work nearly as well. Everyone walks at a different pace, people have different exhaustion points, and the big benefits like stopping to smell the roses, taking a moment to grab a coffee, those things frustrate people who are not ready for a coffee or aren't interested in the thing you're going to look at. So it really benefits people who are traveling solo, which I often do in cities, so it works out perfectly for me. And if you watch my videos, you know that I like to walk, whether it's in the country or in the city or whatever, so I'm doing that anyway. It really fits my lifestyle. So this is really more of just a understanding Scott and what he likes to do. But over the years of travel, I have found that if I spend my day traveling with people, I still want my night to be time of traveling alone. I build so much more knowledge and experience and impression of a place in those solitary moments, in those walking moments, in that breathing in the air. And some of this goes back to when I was a teenager. I lived very far out in the country. I grew up on a farm. And when I would go out and explore the area that I lived in, I did so by bicycle. When I was very young, I did it on foot, but I couldn't get anywhere because I lived really far out. When I was a teenager, I was able to bicycle far enough that I was able to go from town to town, which you had to do because I didn't grow up in a village. My nearest village was about 10 miles away. So until I could bike 10 miles to a village and 10 miles back, I was not able to really experience anything. But once I started doing that, going places by bicycle gave me this visceral experience of being out and experiencing the air and the changes between places and seeing it all firsthand. I never had this, warp experience that a car or a bus would do. And so I started very young visiting different places in this way. A lot of the villages that I would visit are places that I really didn't go to other than on bicycle because there was no reason to, but going there because it was the next town on the road or it was reasonably accessible made it make sense for me to go there. And I would go experience and be like, what's there? What restaurants are there? What diners are there? What cafes are there? What shops are there? And I would just go street by street on bicycle because that gave me a chance to relax after doing the long distances between places. And I learned to do that in that way. And then in 2005, when I worked in that job that allowed me to go all those places and walk at night in a different city every night, it really built this appreciation that I have for both solo travel and this solitary exploration on foot. Now I'm older, I don't ride a bicycle anymore. Falling off would be quite bad, and I don't want to deal with locking up a bicycle, all the things that go with that. I like just walking. It's just so much easier for me, maybe not for you, but it's been a good experience for me as I get older. And it really is a major part of my way of viewing places that I travel. I always get out and walk cities. And of course you guys see it because I do it now on video, but even when I don't have the camera, that is how I get around in a city. When my wife sends me out to go someplace, I could go quite far and she'll think, well, he'll just take a taxi, and I'll walk miles instead of taking a taxi because I like getting the exercise. I like the quiet moments to myself. And often it doesn't take that much more time. It does often take quite a bit more time, but sometimes it doesn't take that much more time, but the time I get is solitary. I don't have to have a conversation with someone that I'm not going to see again. I don't have to, pay attention to things or pay for anything. And it saves money, of course, which is just an added benefit. That's rarely why I do it. But sometimes I don't want to deal with paying with a taxi, or I don't want to deal with negotiating a price on something. Walking is free. I don't have to worry about it. If I get thirsty, great. I'll stop in and grab a water somewhere. That'll cost far less than taking a taxi. As it may become a major part of who I am, and as a major influence as to why I do this show and do it the way that I do, why I do other travel shows, and why I'm so interested in travel in many cases, and why solo travel to places like Bolivia work out so well for me. Learning to do that has been great. So something to consider, whether it's just you're interested in learning more about why I travel the way I do, or why I have the insights that I do, or you're looking for some inspiration on maybe you should get out and do some of this traveling on your own as well. Of course, if you're looking at coming here to Nicaragua, we talked 2 days ago about where you could do this type of walking here in Nicaragua. It's not necessarily the best country for that, but It is a wonderful country, very safe to come visit, so I highly recommend that you do. But if you're looking for cities that are very walkable and you want to do those really extensive city walking tours in this general region, of course, Panama City, San Jose, Costa Rica, Guatemala City, Guatemala, all those are really fantastic for that, and I'm sure there's many more that I have yet to get out and walk myself. Tegucigalpa, not as good. It is less safe and much more difficult to walk around. You don't have as many things to go from place to place. I really want to get out to Xela or Quetzaltenango in northern Guatemala and explore that as well. San Pedro Sula is on my hopeful upcoming agenda. And San Salvador really needs a closer look. Those are the major cities that I've not walked myself yet. I have done Tegucigalpa, and I don't know how much I would recommend that in most cases. I do hope to get there, spend more time, and get kind of a better idea of where you could walk and bring some of that to you guys on the show. But in general, it is a bit more difficult. Of course, all over Mexico, and lots of places exist. And South America, of course, tons of big cities that are just waiting to be explored. We just did La Paz and Cochabamba. They were so cool. And I've done a ton of walking all over Europe. Europe is, there's no doubt, the best place to walk cities because of the incredible degree of safety and the tourist infrastructure. Even if you walk really far, you're unlikely to get to a position where you could walk so far and not have some way back home. If you're interested in city walking, but you've never tried it, then really Europe is the best place to start, or really your own city, right? Places that you know. Don't be afraid if you live in the US or Canada, there's going to be places you can safely do it nearby. No matter where you live, right? Even if you're in some place like Los Angeles or Chicago, you can get to safe walking cities within a relatively short distance and find areas that you can explore and get used to doing this. But if you're looking for some international adventure and you want to find some places that are further away and more exotic, Europe is the obvious choice of unlimited numbers of cities and villages where you can walk forever and never really have to worry in any way whatsoever. And you can do so in places that speak English, speak Spanish, speak German, speak Italian, whatever it is you're looking for. You can find that you can inch your way towards more and more exotic, all while staying incredibly safe, both from a pure violence and safety standpoint, but also from a logistics standpoint. What if you walk for 10 hours, you twist your ankle, what are you going to do to get home? Even in the middle of the night, there's typically buses, trains, something to get you home, taxis, if nothing else. Latin America does make a great place to do city walking, but it is a bit more dangerous. Cities are a bit more confusing. There is less public transportation, so you want to be more aware. You can't just go out and do it blindly, as you can't in most of the world, but you certainly can do it extensively. There are great places to explore, and I encourage you to work towards that as well. Thanks for joining me. Like and subscribe. If you'd like to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Scott Be very appreciated. And as always, please share on social media, Facebook, Reddit, LinkedIn, wherever you hang out on social media. Let people know about the show. Just post a link to it. It'll generally show up, and they can watch it right there and learn about the show. Of course, tell your friends and family. And I will see all of you tomorrow.